Hi, my name is Kristen Wiig, and I feel warm about being Conan O'Brien's friend.
Okay, Kristen, I think that's just the temperature in the room. I honestly think it is a very elevated room temperature.
It's a nice temperature, but I feel warm being here.
I am so happy that you're here.
Thanks.
Because I remember when you got cast on SNL and absolutely adoring you and thinking like, I think this is like the funniest person I've seen.
Yeah.
No.
And I say that this will not air.
Period.
Period. We're going to find our way to block it to all the other SNL people I've talked to, so they never hear that. You're just so insanely funny. And I met you, we had you on the show, and and just one time, and then I moved on to other things. And we didn't get to really connect again. And so if nothing else, when I found out that you were going to come in today, I thought, this is my chance to tell you just how blown away I am by you.
Thank
as
you.
a performer, singer, songwriter, dancer. I'm just making up things you don't probably do.
Well, I do those things.
You're a dancer? Really? Good dancer?
I mean, no, I used to, I've danced.
Yes. You do one, well, actually, you do a character, Gilly, and Gilly has an intro number and does a dance to it. And I love good physical comedy, and it's one of my favorite things.
Thanks.
When you break into, first of all, I think all characters everywhere. I was talking about this with Robert Smigel the other day, and we worked together at SNL, and we were talking about, I like him fine. But we were talking about a sketch that we wrote for Tom Hanks called Mr. Short-Term Memory, and how we insisted, this is like 1988, that it has to have a theme song. And I remembered Lauren was like, no, it doesn't need the sketches don't have theme song openings. And we said, no, it has to. And we had a whole animated opening where Tom Hanks' character gets hit by a pear sitting under a pear tree.
Wait, it was animated?
It was like, he's like sitting under, it's Mr. Short-Term Memory. Yeah. He never should have sat under that pear tree. Now he has no memory, but he'll never know. And you'll love him, whatever. He'll frustrate you so, because he's Mr. Short-Term. Anyway, we wrote this whole theme song, and I always thought, I think it should be a law that all sketch characters have a ridiculous theme song that wastes time.
It's a good way to get rid of the nerves, I gotta say.
Well, that's a great...
Because you're like dancing and shaking, and then you're like, okay, I don't know. Because it's obviously a very nerve-wracking job.
Yeah, it is a nerve-wracking job. You wouldn't know it looking at your performances, but I remember you doing the Gilly dance, and the dance incorporates maybe 9 different very distinct moves that probably aren't supposed to all go together.
Probably not.
It's so funny.
Thank you.
It's so funny.
That means a lot coming from you, Conan.
I appreciate that. But I was your body of work on SNL alone, just not even getting into your other tremendous work, is crazy. You're so prolific. And then to hear you say, well, it gets out the nerves. And I think it is nice for people listening, and probably revelatory that they hear, Kristen Wiig has nerves.
Oh my God, yes. I think I would be worried about myself if I didn't, especially with SNL because it's live. You feel like you want to throw up for every show. I always say the good thing is because you have dress rehearsal, so you kind of know what sort of works, but there could be things that work in dress, and then you're like waiting for some sort of giggle, and then it's silent. During air, that happens all the time.
A false positive.
Oh, there's nothing worse.
Is, well, actually, in medicine, it's a very good thing sometimes. You're not dying. So sometimes it works out, but a false positive in comedy, and what would happen sometimes, it's rare, but something can really do well at dress. Usually doesn't happen, but it's a different crowd. Then what happens is they do the air show, and the air show, sometimes that's when all the executives got their friends in. Maybe, Lauren has some pals there. Just a lot of people are coming in. And so they're a different crowd, maybe a little more entitled. Maybe they've seen the show a bunch.
It's just such a I remember Charles Barkley was hosting, and I wrote a sketch with Jillian Bell, and it was for the writer's room. It got the best reaction I've ever had in the history of the time that I was there. I mean, like, people were clapping. We're like, oh, this is looking like a really great sketch. And when I tell you, when we went to dress, and you know when like the first joke comes out and like that's the sketch, so if they're not going to laugh at that, you've got about, it feels like 18 minutes of like silence. It was so silent. And I was just looking at other people in the sketch, like Andy and Bill, they're like looking at me laughing, like this is going so, it was just absolutely silent. I couldn't even predict that was going to happen. But it's good also because then it kind of like keeps you on your toes. You don't expect certain things, but the way that it bombed was just for the books.
I wrote a sketch, same thing for Phil Hartman. This is before you were born, but I wrote a sketch for Phil Hartman way back in the day, and it was an idea I liked, where he played this character Mace, who was really tough and talked really fast, and he was Mace, and he had done it at the Groundlings, and it was this, you listen to me and you listen to me good, I'm gonna kill you, I'm gonna crush your skull, and it was this great character, and I thought, oh, this is terrific. He gets put. Whoever the host was, and I don't remember, but the male host gets put in a prison cell with him, and the male host is, whoever it was, has Mace as his cellmate. And Mace comes on is so tough and hard, and you're not gonna make it, buddy boy. Listen to me, I'm the king of this. So, and then, the way in those cells there's just an exposed toilet. It comes time, they're both there for a while, and then it's clear that Mace has to use the toilet, but he's embarrassed about using it in front of the other guy in this very shy human way. And he's like putting little pieces of toilet paper down. He's trying to do it when the other guy's back is turned. And whenever the guy turns back, he goes like, you keep looking the other way, buddy boy. And it was just all about this very common.
That's so funny to me.
No. And so we did this thing we read it at read through. And like tile was coming off the ceiling. People were laughing so hard. And it's over, and the applause and people coming up, and, Lauren actually making eye contact, and I'll give you a gold coin, and you're just feeling amazing. And then dress rehearsal, and it starts. And then there's the first thing, which is the whole sketch, where you realize that Mace wants to use the toilet, the toughest guy in the world, but he's ashamed in front of this other guy and is trying to get him to turn his back by using different tricks and go to the back. And silence. And I remember I had called everybody. Oh, yeah. I'm gonna have a sketch tonight. Oh, of course I did. Of course I did, Kristen. Because I'm a writer. And I'm like, tune in, because you all thought I didn't have it. Well, you're going to see a sketch tonight with Phil Hartman called
watch this.
Watch this. And then just absolute silence. And then that thing where they say the last line, well, that's the way it goes. Long pause, then the band. Doon, 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 doon. And no applause. And then you don't even have to go in to the room. You know it's never going to make air. And just, you want to do an autopsy afterwards and find out.
Like what happened? Why did it work there and not, maybe there's something about seeing it as opposed to just reading it? I also, still don't know.
As you know, I just gave it up at a certain point and said, there's magic to this. Sometimes the magic is there. Yeah. Sometimes it's not. I give up. I can't explain it. There's no reason.
Yeah. Well, that's probably why a little bit of the nerves too, because you don't know what the audience is, if they're in a good mood or if. But also, it's interesting to me, like people often see me backstage when I'm going to do something and I'm doing a lot of stretching and I'm kind of getting very focused. And they are surprised because they've said, like, you've done 4,000 hours. You must have no nerves. And I've often said, I don't care who you are or what your track record is. You are always potentially 10 seconds away from the worst humiliation of your life. Of course. And I almost feel like the more you've done it, then, I don't know, you're kind of like, well, I'm due for something.